The top 6 Democratic candidates made it on the stage. Former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Senator Amy Klobuchar, and billionaire businessman Tom Steyer, who actually joins us now. And I guess let's just kind of get right into things here. This has just been sort of a whirlwind tour for you here. You've kind of elevated your name here. I guess what do you make and how do you sort of compare yourself to your other Democratic opponents so far?
Well, let me say this, Jay, as you point out, I'm very different from everybody else. And I think as we get closer to the Iowa caucuses and the early primaries, I think Democrats are focused on who can beat Mr. Trump. And we know that Mr. Trump's going to run on the economy because he's saying he's running on the economy, and he's saying that Democrats will ruin the economy. And in that, I am very different from everyone else on that stage. I built a business from scratch into a multi-billion-dollar international business. I can take Mr. Trump on the economy, go toe-to-toe, and show that he was a fake businessman and a failed businessman, and that he's been a terrible steward of the American economy for the American people. So I think that's actually a great opportunity for me, because as people focus on beating him, it's going to take economic chops, and I have different experience and different expertise than anyone else on that stage.
Kind of sticking with the economy, and I know you kind of touted yourself as the climate candidate here for the Democrats. I guess, how are you trying to bring both the things together? Because I know on Tuesday night you kind of said you wanted to sort of move away from fossil fuel-based economies. I guess kind of what are you getting at when you say you want to move away from that type of economy?
Well, look, Jay, I've said that climate has to be my top priority, that I'll declare a state of emergency on day one and use the emergency powers of the presidency. I've said that I'll do it from the standpoint of environmental justice, start in the communities, mostly black and brown communities, where it's unsafe to breathe the air because you'll get asthma and unsafe to drink the tap water because you'll get sick. But also that we will do this in a way that creates literally millions of good-paying union jobs across this country. This is the biggest job program in American history. Rebuild America on an accelerated basis in a sustainable way so we can deal with our climate crisis. I know we can do this. I know that we have the technology to do it. I know that clean energy is cheaper than fossil fuel energy, and I know it will create literally millions of good-paying jobs. So I've worked on this for 12 years. I've fought and beat the oil companies about clean energy. I've pushed the utilities for 50% clean energy in the United States by 2030. So I've studied this for a long time, and I know we can do it. I know we have to do it, but we can do it in a way that makes us better paid, better employed, richer, cheaper energy, and healthier.
I know obviously a big topic right now is some of the tensions with Iran. You said during the debate that you kind of agreed that we were spending too much on defense and kind of sort of patrolling that area. I guess you also mentioned that you wanted sort of a better strategy. What would a Tom Steyer strategy sort of look like when it comes to the Middle East?
Oh my gosh. Look, we have a pretty good example, Jay, of what a strategy would look like. We would move away immediately from Mr. Trump's idea of America first, which is basically to say that we're going to have a confrontational, bilateral relationship with every country in the world, including Iran. Actually, what President Obama did with Iran is he negotiated with a coalition of our traditional allies to push Iran to give up their nuclear ambition, and it worked. So when we think about what we're trying to accomplish, we have to remember, we don't have to go it alone. In fact, going it alone is a mistake. We should be working in coalition with our traditional allies, standing up for American values around the world, and pushing for negotiated solutions that are win-win, which is exactly what we did. Mr. Trump's confrontational escalation of violence is not something that makes America safer. It makes Americans less safe, and there is no strategic way to look forward and see that it makes sense.
Another one of the sort of the big things in the election will be health care. I know you were in favor of the Affordable Care Act. You also wanted to sort of add a private option to that. I guess kind of explain to our viewers what you sort of meant by that.
Look, let's take a step back, Jay. I think everyone should recognize that affordable health care is a right of every American in the 21st century. It's a right. And the second thing is, we are paying way too much for healthcare. We're paying twice as much as other advanced nations for the same or worse healthcare. So the question is, how do we ensure that every American has a right to affordable healthcare and drive down the cost? And what I've said is, you'd literally put an option, a public option into the Affordable Care Act, where you could essentially join Medicare, and we would use the buying power, so everyone has a right to healthcare, and we would then use the buying power of the federal government to push back against the drug companies in terms of cost, push back against the private hospitals, and push back against the insurance companies. That way we build on the Affordable Care Act. We leave choice to Americans. They can choose that public option, or they can stay with their employment-based healthcare if they have it and like it. And we don't have to scrap the entire system that we've built up over the last 75 years, but we drive down prices aggressively. I guarantee I will do this. These corporations are taking advantage of American citizens. We are paying way too much, and what that means is people can't afford their health care, and health care isn't available to millions of Americans, and both those things have to change.
Well, we could talk with you pretty much probably all day here, but we know you got to go here. We do certainly appreciate the time, Mr. Steyer, and hopefully we can catch up with you after the Iowa caucuses.
Jay, it's great to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
All right, Tom Steyer, presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. The Republican National Committee released this statement after the Democratic debate, saying, quote, if they did care about hardworking Americans, they would not be touting a radical socialist agenda that threatens to undo all of the economic progress that has been made over the last 3 years. Their multi-trillion-dollar policies stand in stark contrast to President Trump's record of results for the American people. Voters will overwhelmingly choose his winning agenda in November.